We're going to get started in about a minute. Thanks for coming. Okay. All right. One more. See, nice. College DuPage Library is coming. They're all coming now. Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for coming to the webinar today. Dumpster Diving for Information, presented by the NILROC's Information Literacy Committee here. My name is Jason Ertz. I am the chair of the NILROC Information Literacy Committee. But today we're going to be hearing from two of my colleagues, Laura Watson, Director of Library Services at Highland Community Colleges and Reference Librarian, and Atticus Garrison, Reference and Instruction Librarian at Black Hawk College. So if I will give you, if you could give them your attention, I think we're in for a real great discussion today around the AI chatbots. So Laura and Atticus, go ahead and take it away. Thanks.
Thanks everyone for joining us today. Over the last few years, I started noticing anecdotal evidence that Google search results were getting worse. Google has been my go-to search engine for many, many years, probably a lot of us. For a while, I hadn't noticed a big change in the quality of search myself, but every few weeks, another article would appear suggesting a developing problem, or another tweet or social media post would make me wonder. My colleagues on the NILROC Information Literacy Committee that plans these webinars can attest that I've been low-key obsessed with this question for a couple of years here. So for what seems like forever, librarians have bemoaned the fact that our students favor Google search for their research paper resources over our excellent subscription database content. We've used our presentations to show our students better search strategies using search engines like Google, but that was always secondary to pointing them towards the subscription resources. As evidence begins to mount that the quality of Google search results is indeed declining or changing, I started to question the percentage of time that I devote in my one-shot sessions to better Google searching or even recommending Google Scholar. Let's talk about why. I think it started, the decline of search results quality started a long time ago with SEO spam, let's say. If that's not an acronym that you know yet, SEO is search engine optimization. It was always a challenge for content creators to get attention via search engines like Google. So that's when search engine optimization started to be a thing that was offered to content developers and others. Even in the early days of learning to build web pages for libraries, we were also learning about ways to add metadata to our web pages so that people searching various keywords would find it. We were the good guys though, right? Choosing useful keywords to help people find our resources and services. But maybe you noticed some years ago that you would sometimes receive search results that didn't necessarily mention your keywords at all. The metadata or keyword tags within the HTML coding of the websites was optimized to make it into the results for the term you may have been searching. For example, if you search for information on diabetes or some other condition, you might get you do get results with information about diabetes, but also start seeing results about different medicines and, of course, ads. And this was by design. So to some extent, in the beginning, Google itself was concerned about ranking results by quality instead of, say, by the number of times a keyword appeared within the document or the number of times it was coded to do that from the SEO tags. According to Yannick Bevendorf and others in a recent article, Is Google Getting Worse? A longitudinal investigation of SEO spam in search engines. SEO is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it makes high-quality pages easier to find, but on the other hand, it is a sharp tool for pushing up low-quality results in the search ranking. Google still does try to downrank pages whose creators are trying to game the keyword searching or the algorithms or with the SEO spam. And there is a difference between SEO spam and advertisements, although there's some overlap between them. When creators try to game their way into search results with search engine optimization techniques, sometimes they're trying to sell something, but they're not necessarily doing paid advertising. Sponsored results were the earliest results in a list of Google search for many years. They used to be color-coded and clearly labeled, so you could see, okay, those are the ads, the real results start down here. A useful thing to point out to students. That's gone now. They're all mixed in there. When Google decided in 2019 they weren't making enough money on us, they made the sponsored content indistinguishable from the rest of your search results. And meanwhile, then Google or whatever other commercial search engine you're using is associating your search terms with your unique profile so they can manipulate the algorithms to sell your attention to other companies. Those affiliate companies then advertise to kind of sell your profile to other platforms such as Facebook and Amazon so they can deliver ads to you based on your search history and all of that stuff. So that was just the beginning, but it certainly continues to make things worse. Question in the chat from Kat Brody. Is read.ai supposed to be enabled for this presentation? I never thought about it. I don't know if anyone else did.
No, Lois, is that just part of the recording option?
I am doing the recording, and it's also creating a transcript. Other than that, I couldn't tell you. Does
Fair
anybody
enough,
else
yeah.
know about Google Meets?
I don't know.
It'll be-
Okay, over the last several years, Google has cut back some of the advanced search options or search shortcuts it used to offer. And it's been regularly altering its options if you read on the advanced search tips screens. So yeah, here in the image I chose, I miss when search engines looked for the words you typed. Yes, the good old days. And you could ask Google to leave out particular words. There's still some, but some of the kind of Boolean searching with parentheses is no longer as functional as it was what we might call the before times. Now it relies much more on predictive algorithms and search engine optimization to return its list of results.
And on top of all that, not just on the search engine side, determining how it ranks things and how it organizes things, on the content side, more and more of the content that exists in those results is being generated by AI sources. So the first link on the left is a graph of, this is self-reported news sites or news aggregation or news-related content generation sites. Has gone up, as we can see. It starts tracking in July of 2023, and it goes all the way to the beginning of this year, and we can see it's gone from just under 200 of those self-reported sites relying on AI-generated content all the way up to just under 1,200. So those are some results that are showing up in your Google searches, as well as more and more content on social media itself is being AI generated. So we have quotes from Meta employees where the new philosophy going forward is to encourage AI generated content, simply because the more content that exists on a platform, the longer people look at that content. So it's a matter of quantity and keeping kind of what Laura was saying, your eyeballs and your attention on the content that exists. So all of these different factors play into muddying the actual results themselves, even if we didn't have all of these problematic behaviors existing in how Google is organizing the information. The content itself is declining in quality because more and more of it is AI generated.
And recent research demonstrates that every instructor's favorite Google Scholar articles are certainly not free of AI contamination either. So, and this can take several forms. In some cases, authors have left evidence that they made some use of ChatGPT to get their work done faster. Their drive to publish or perish by a deadline lures them to the promise of easier writing, analysis, or literature review through AI. But that might be the good cases. In other cases, the papers themselves are entirely fabricated, or charts, graphs, or images within them are AI generated. Authors in a recent Harvard Kennedy School Misinformation Review article from September said, our analysis shows that questionable and potentially manipulative GPT fabricated papers permeate the research infrastructure and are likely to become a widespread phenomenon. Our findings underline that the risk of fake scientific papers being used to maliciously manipulate evidence must be taken seriously. Manipulation may involve undeclared automatic summaries of texts, inclusion in literature reviews, explicit scientific claims, or the concealment of errors in studies so that they are difficult to detect in peer review. This study's authors concluded Google Scholar easily locates and lists these questionable papers alongside reputable quality control research. Our analysis of a selection of questionable GPT fabricated scientific papers found in Google Scholar shows that many are about applied, often controversial topics susceptible to disinformation, the environment, health, and computing. The resulting enhanced potential for malicious manipulation of society's evidence base, particularly in politically divisive domains, is a growing concern. Then now we're contending with the content in our Google search results from the AI overviews. The content from which the AI overview is extracted may or may not itself be accurate. And inaccurate content may be highly rated or popular or frequently shared, so that might make it more likely for the AI overview to pick it up. That was kind of always a problem for librarians, that more popular stuff was easier to find than less popular, but sometimes higher quality stuff. But when the AI overview appears at the top of search results to our students, it looks more authoritative, an authoritative summary of the facts. Here are some typical problems with the AI overview as identified in an Ars Technica article from May. Sometimes the AI overview treats jokes as facts. Jokes can be highly ranked by algorithms because they are shared frequently. This can lead the AI to interpret them as important or authoritative. Sometimes AI will return an accurate summary from an incorrect source. Because searchers aren't experts, they're unlikely to notice the inaccuracies being presented as facts. If users aren't double-checking the sources behind AI overviews, they're trusting in potentially misleading sources. Sometimes the overviews provide accurate information, but don't actually answer the question that was asked. So there's a lot going on here. If questions require math and statistical information, the AI overview and AI in general is known to be bad at answering questions that require skill in math and statistics, and is likely to retrieve irrelevant data, interpret that data incorrectly, or hallucinate an answer, such as in the Ars Technica article, when the authors asked how many days were there between October 2024 and January 2025. they said, AI bafflingly told us there are 738,523 days between October 2024 and January 2025. So not really. If you have students like those I help in our lab in the Clarence Mitchell Library at Highland, they are glad to take information from the AI overview. It looks simple, it's easily explained, and they might use a quote from the overview in their source material, or they ask me if it's okay if they do. Sometimes they don't ask me at all, but I've been asked several times how they should cite the AI overview. So in a sort of infomercial for itself, Google highlights the magical ways you can use Google's AI to do the work for you. Let Google do the Googling for you. It recommends, and news hot off last week's presses, after we tested our content, there was still news breaking about changes relating to AI. But one of those news articles that came out just last week is that Google's future plans are to move towards directing every query through the Google Chat AI instead of having us use the old-fashioned search engine way of searching online. So what does all that mean? I'll turn it over to Atticus now for some thoughts about that.
Yeah, so you may have noticed by this point we haven't talked about the boogeyman, the elephant in the room that launched at the end of the year in 2022, and that's how does ChatGPT play into all of this? So this is an article from Forbes from the heart of the storm. So ChatGPT had just come out I think 2 or 3 months prior to this article, and I think it was teacher polled students. So this is a self-filtered survey that was sent out to students that were aware of ChatGPT within the first 2 to 3 months of it being released. And of the students that were aware of ChatGPT, 89 of them, those students admitted to using ChatGPT to help them with homework. Now, again, that's a very self-selected survey, but these were some of the headlines that were coming out early on around ChatGPT use, and there's been years of push and pull and backlash since then. More up-to-date surveys that have come out since find that around 46% of teachers and about 48% of students say that they use ChatGPT at least weekly. And that doesn't necessarily mean for schoolwork, but it is a tool that they are interacting with some regularity. And that is up 27% over 2023. So these are 2024 numbers over the course of the year. So on top of students and their typical use cases of using Google to help them find sources, they are more and more relying on ChatGPT for some of those research related queries as well. And unsurprising to many of you, ChatGPT has many of the same issues that Laura went over for its AI overview. It can get factual information wrong. It can make improper takeaways from the sources. But one thing that is an update to ChatGPT within the past year and a half is it can now query and search the web. The interface does look different than Google, but and I left an example here. So I asked ChatGPT, can you search the web for reasons why librarians are awesome? And so it did the normal ChatGPT thing where it came up with a bullet point list because it loves those. And it does cite sources. So as we can see here, one of the first points it said is librarians are champions of information access. Then it links to a blog where someone is, and the blog post was called How Librarians Are Making a Difference in Their Communities. And that's where it's citing its evidence. So it's laid out much in the same way that a Google AI overview would be laid out. A few of the problems, same as what Laura mentioned, is students are more likely to want to take that post or that ChatGPT output rather than doing a dive into what sources it's pulling that information from to evaluate whether what's being said is true or accurate or not. And I think there's a lot of overlap here between when Wikipedia was first released and how it affected all of us and how we help students navigate this environment. There's a lot of overlap with some of the takeaways we can give for Wikipedia that we can give for these AI overviews. So You can't directly cite Wikipedia in the same way you can't directly, I mean, you can, there is a way to cite the AI overview, but in terms of finding an authoritative source, you're better off checking the sources that ChatGPT or the AI overview give. One, to make sure that they exist, because it can make up sources still, even though it is plugged into a search. And two, to make sure that that source that's being cited is a good source. And again, we can help that, information literacy skills. And to make sure that what the AI overview said is being said is actually what's in the content of the source. Because, and this is an example from the AI overview, it will get things wrong. And if something exists in the source data, it can come out as an output. And the source data is the entire internet. So here's an example from when Google first rolled out its AI overview. If you were looking for Google for pizza recipes, one of the little tips and tricks that it would give you for making a homemade pizza recipe is make sure you put in an 1/8 cup of non-toxic glue into your sauce to make it so the crust, the cheese doesn't slide off the crust of your pizza. So at least it said non-toxic glue at the very least, but some internet sleuths found where in the training data this takeaway came from, and it's a random Reddit comment from 11 years ago. And you find this a lot both with ChatGPT in its web search and Google's AI overview, where if a statement exists in the source data and there's enough of an affiliation, it will grab that and use it in the AI overview or in the ChatGPT output. And this is an issue that we need to be letting our students know, the fallibility of this technology. You should not rely on it as a source of information. So we also have a number of AI and AI adjacent tools that are starting to encroach into the library world. So I know some of us have probably already played around with this, but I wanted to do a little show and tell of the Primo Research Assistant, which is an AI tool that if you are an Ex Libris college or you use Ex Libris, you can plug this onto Primo Discovery and you can have an AI assist your chats. So how does it work? So it's an AI-powered research tool designed to streamline academic searches. And these are all bullet points from the Ex Libris website, by the way. It enables natural language queries to find relevant academic content. So the pitch is, instead of students coming up with a Boolean search or an advanced search or trying to come up with search terms, they can write out their research question into the search box. So if the research question is like, why are librarians awesome? They can literally write why are librarians awesome into the search box, and then it will come up with the search query. The AI will come up with the search query on the back end. It's plugged into your library catalog discovery system. So it is querying your materials and the abstracts of the articles in your collection for the answers to that research question. It then gives you like a AI overview output attempting to address whatever your research query was. So assuming I can get this to work, let's see if I can pull up our one moment. All right, and I hope you can all see our Primo here. So right now in our sandbox, we have the AI research assistant enabled. It shows up at the top banner here. So click on it. You'll log in with whatever your authentication system is, just like you would anything else. And then it'll come to a page that looks something like this. So I have a tested research topic, but you'll write out whatever your research question is into this box. You can determine what kinds of resources you want it to query and a date range in this box as well. So we'll stick with my example. Are librarians beneficial to the academic outcomes of college students? So what it'll do is it'll do a search on the back end. It'll give you the top 5 articles that it believes, the AI believes, address that question that showed up in the AI's search results. It then gives you an overview of those sources and cites them. Again, I want to caveat, This AI has the same proclivities for error that the ChatGPT and Google AI overviews have. So even though it is querying the materials, it can make the wrong takeaways. It can claim that an article is addressing a point and it actually isn't. So there is room for error here on this end as well. And theoretically, you can ask follow-up questions. So if you're looking for more in-depth information or something, you can continue searching while talking to the AI. That is the use case that Ex Libris has pushed forward. But there is an alternative way that you can use this tool that I think personally is more helpful and more helpful at teaching information literacy schools and actually getting students to interact with the sources themselves, which is not the default use case that Ex Libris is pushing forward. So we type out our research question, we've got our top 5 articles, and then we've got our AI overview. We also have a view more results button here, which if you click on that, you actually get to see what the search was that the AI used. So the AI used this search in our library catalog. Let's see if I can. Okay. So that was the full query that our AI used in our catalog. It found over 378,000 results. And theoretically, you can go through and evaluate if these sources are good. This can be a way that, or you can simply edit the search that the AI did, or you can take some of the search terms that are in that were used in that search to further narrow your search in a traditional way. Now, personally, if you're looking for my 2 cents on this system, I would prefer if it showed the actual content as a default rather than the AI overview. Because from a practical student perspective, the AI overview can get factual information wrong, and it leads the students down a path for conducting research that is not helpful and can lead for them having to do more work down the road. But that's the research assistant in a nutshell. It's you ask it a question, it queries your resources and tries to find answers within the abstracts of those materials in your collection. Okay. Go back to the slide. So that's the Primo Research Assistant. It uses retrieval augmented generation. It essentially takes your query and turns it in, or it takes your research question and turns it into a search query. It scours your collection. It ranks the top 5. And then it scans the abstracts for any material that directly are addressing the research question. Yes, Ruth, it is querying our collection of materials. So it takes our the Primo Research Assistant will take your research question, develop a Boolean search, and then search your results for your institution in the library catalog. So it's not going outside of our system. The other kind of philosophy of developing AI tools is what OCLC has been working on with WorldCat. So as I am aware of, OCLC has 2 AI applications that they have rolled out over the course of the last 2 years. The first one is AI book recommendations. So if you pull up something in OCLC, you can opt in to having it the top 5 results are based off of, hi Colin, Colin asked, are the top 5 results coming from the CDI? The top 5 results are coming from that scan that the AI does of those. So like in our results, it was 370,000 results. The AI looks through the abstracts of all those 370,000 results, and it makes a determination which 5 abstracts address the research query. And then it pulls those and saves them in the AI overview. So it's looking over those results after that Boolean search it did. And the WorldCat is, so you pull up a book, like say you're looking at The Shining, And you can opt into hitting a little toggle that says, do you want WorldCat to give you recommendations based on the books you've been reading? And so essentially all the AI does is it gives you a little window on the side for recommendations for further reading based on the books that you've been looking at. So it's a very controlled application, and it's up to your discretion whether you want to opt in or not. And it again, it has, there's no way that it's going to make something up, because each of the materials that it's pulling is also an entry in WorldCat. So it's a much more controlled and focused search is the word results. Thank you for sharing that, Colin. Thank you for sharing that, Colin. So again, it's a much more focused search or focused application in WorldCat, where it will give you a handful of recommendations pulled again from WorldCat entries. The other implementation that WorldCat has been experimenting with is implementing an AI model that will detect and potentially remove duplicate bibliographic records. Again, it will not automatically do this, but they're playing around with training an AI to determine when there's a duplicate bibliographic record entered into OCLC or into WorldCat, and then it'll flag it when that bibliographic record is created. And then in theory, the person that notices that can go, oh, that is the same record, or no, this is a distinct record, and they can go from there. So a much more focused application to help help everyone continue doing their work maybe a little bit more efficiently, as opposed to the Ex Libris method, which is essentially taking a GPT API wrapper. I don't know if GPT is the back end of the Ex Libris, but taking an LLM wrapper overlay and putting it onto the library catalog system in Framework. So what does all of this mean for us as librarians? The way that our students are searching for information is changing. The way that they interact in these systems is changing. And the number of systems that they interact with that have these AI tools is also expanding. So what does that mean for us? Are we screwed? Are we out of luck in terms of how we go forward? Are students just going to be using AI overviews for all the research papers going forward? Fear not, Lauren, I say. A lot of the core principles inherent in information literacy instruction are still true, and in many cases are more true now than they were before. So instead of having to deal with a lot of those base takeaways that we would have with using things like Wikipedia or blog posts, we now just have to apply those same principles to AI overviews and AI generated content. So if you're a fan of the CRAP test, if you're a fan of the SIFT test, source evaluation is now probably more important than ever before. In unfortunate ways, we have to rely more on authority than probably we would have in the past. Like, do you recognize this publication? Does it have editorial standards before it can be published? Is it a platform that supports AI generated content? So it's just, we're probably going to have, if anything's changing, it's probably having to rely more on appeals to authority, or at least certain editorial standards of the sources that we're evaluating. But otherwise, a lot of those same principles that we teach in InfoLit sessions still maintain and are still true today. We probably just have to take a moment to acknowledge AI overviews or ChatGPT when we're doing that instruction. Another thing that we can do is advocate for transparent and controllable AI interactions where applicable. So with the Primo Research Assistant, I have a lot of problems with how hands-off it makes the research process, and I would prefer if it prompted more active student and active researcher engagement with that process, rather than give me the research question, here's the answer to that question, and the student is very disconnected from the results of those searches. So I think just more advocacy on our part as librarians, and allowing that to play a role in what AI tools we choose to adopt versus the ones that we don't choose to adopt. Again, rely on independent human curated sources such as Internet Archive, Project Gutenberg, library databases, etc. Just try to use sources of information where there's less likely to be AI slop in it, right? Google, unfortunately, Google results they're rough right now. So there's been also a noted shift in people moving away from Google for the first time in forever, as far as I can tell, and people moving to other avenues such as ChatGPT for queries because of how bad the Google search results have gotten. And I think there's going to be a shift in probably the kinds of queries that people use in Google going forward. Like maybe they just go to Google to find like specific information that they know exists. So like they want to find the menu for a local restaurant. For example, they knew that specific piece of information is available on Google. That's what they go for. And more general queries are more and more turning to these AI tools, like, you know, I don't know, how to fix my plumbing or something. You know, there's a leak in my faucet. What are the best ways to solve it? Those kind of general queries are shifting more and more towards those AI tools. Also, and this is a pet project of mine, teach AI literacy skills. So make a part of your offering in your InfoLit sessions, teaching about what AI is, what its limitations are, and what's going on when you interact with an AI tool such as ChatGPT, or even the Primo Research Assistant if you're one of the institutions that's chosen to adopt it. If, again, we've been here before, Wikipedia existed and we survived through that. Google came on the scene, we survived through that. I think AI is just another one of those technologies that we have to adapt to in our InfoLit sessions. And if anyone really, really doesn't like AI overviews, there is a way to turn it off. Let me see if I can grab that link. In your personal settings of Google search, you can also just turn off the AI overview, which I know a certain percentage of you would love to know that that option is available. So that is basically it. Does anyone have any questions? I see someone has a hand raised. Yes, Ruth.
Hi, do you suggest talking at all about the value of certain types of AI platforms? So for example, I've seen an article, and I can't cite it right now, but there was an article that created a metric about, is this AI platform for me? So it had to do with looking at the content of different AI, whether it was Claude, ChatGPT, Perplexity, all the different ones, and giving students the ability to understand that different AI platforms really actually offer different content.
I think that if there's a positive and a negative to doing it. So I personally try to stay AI tool agnostic with my instruction, simply because up until this point, and that could change as we're seeing a consolidation around these AI tools. There's a handful, there's Claude, Perplexity, Grok, the Twitter one, Claude, and or Gemini, and ChatGPT. Those are the main, just general purpose AI language or AI chatbot LLM that are plugged into LLMs that folks are using. So I think there's a general use case where you can be like, hey, the ones Claude is really good at coding and it is less good at these other tasks. It might be worth bringing that up to your students if you think students are gravitating towards one or the other. What I tend to generally do in my instruction is I try to make my instruction as broad as possible about the general takeaways, regardless of what AI tool they're choosing to use. Because today, most students are still relying on ChatGPT, but I have been seeing more that are using Claude, for example. So I try to make my instruction more generally applicable rather than focusing on those individual tools. But I fully acknowledge, Ruth, that could change as these tools become more and more specialized. So that's generally what I do.
Thanks.
Any other questions for our two presenters? I do have a particular question for you, Laura and Atticus. You mentioned this idea of the affiliation between, in the glue on pizza example, right? So can you flush out this affiliation problem and how that ends up turning our Google results into something that's not very useful, right? Is that what's happening there? So talk through that.
Yeah, so the way, and this might lead to a whole other talk about what's going on the back end of LLMs when you interact with them. But at their core, they are word association calculate like robots based on the summation of everything that exists on the open internet.
Mm-hmm.
So if you ask a unique enough question to an AI, it has to rely on more and more. So the question about like the pizza recipe, for example, the reason why it had to scrape the bottom of the barrel of random Reddit comments is it's simply a matter of quantity, right? So if like maybe 10 people ever have talked about something on the internet, then the AI is forced to associate with those. And because AI cannot make decisions on good sources of information or bad sources of information, it's just doing that free word association. It pulls whatever it gives. I have a folder on my computer of bad AI overviews. Like I just collect them for what I'm feeling it. And the majority of the times when the AI makes a bad, like a ridiculous takeaway, it is because someone is asking a very specific question that there isn't really an answer to. So in the olden days, when you'd use Google and you couldn't find a result, it would say no results for this query and you have to change your search query. In the AI world, it will always give you an answer. Now, whether that's a good answer or not is, up for you to have to do the digging, but it will try to answer any question that is given to it.
Okay, great.
Oh, another hand, Brian.
Hi, thank you for the presentation, first off. Something that I have been, let me put my hand down. Something that I've been doing recently, and I'm just curious if you've been doing this or if others have been doing this. So when I've been trying to discuss AI in information literacy terms, I'm trying to take it from a different angle, because when I started it, I got a lot of pushback from students when I took it head on, and even faculty, because they didn't want to talk about AI because, it's a dirty little secret that everybody knows about. But what I've been doing is I've been talking about AI music and AI art, and talking about how that's problematic, and like the deep fake using people's likenesses either in art or music, and just how that's problematic and what that is doing to that genre of information, and then kind of expounding outward from there. Have you seen that movement? Like, what is being written out there about these other avenues of AI that aren't necessarily information based?
I will ditto what Jason said. So in the chat, you said I talked about Gen AI and disinformation in classes. Whenever I talk about the like diffusion trained models, so the stuff that can make sound, the stuff that can make images, I generally talk about that in an info lit session that talks about disinformation and kind of the other implications of AI in those use cases. So I separate those two use cases. So I'll talk about the LLMs specifically in the context of like looking at, search, like from the research end. And if they want like a source evaluation component, the instructor, where I can talk a little bit about disinformation, that's when I'll touch on the topics that you're talking about, Brian, where it's like AI, the copyright issues, the issues around authorship of a lot of these materials, and that kind of thing. So I kind of break it up depending, but in terms of getting buy-in from faculty or buy-in from students, I am still operating under the they come to me with it. So there are English faculty that I have not acknowledged the existence of AI to those classes because the faculty member does not want me to go over it. But even in the classes where there's no acceptable AI use, they have a very clear policy of no AI in any circumstances. A lot of those faculty have me come in and give my AI spiel anyway, simply to go over the limitations of it and why it's not a good idea to use it to write your English paper.
Thank you.
Well, I think I see another hand, Amy.
Hey, funny timing for this because I just met with our EBSCO rep today before this meeting. And she was talking a lot about EBSCO AI and that integration for potentially even like plain text language. So I'm wondering if anybody has implemented that yet or has looked into it. And if it's kind of similar to what you were describing for Primo.
I unfortunately have not gotten a chance to play around with EBSCOs. So if anyone else in the group has, that would be cool. Because I haven't gotten a chance to mess around with it yet, so I'm not as familiar with it.
I haven't tried it yet, although our EBSCO rep similarly tried to tell us it has good points and we can play with it and turn it on if we want to. And so, yeah, have you yet to do that? But my impression was it worked very similarly to what's going on with Primo in terms of, except I think it was giving an AI summary for each of the results instead of maybe an overall one, which I might like better. But
Cool.
I agree, Laura. I do think that's better. I really, if it didn't come through, for those of you that are still here, I really dislike the way the Ex Libris is rolling Primo research system. Or in its current form, I do not like the Primo research system. Jason.
So one of the things I'm gathering from this is what I'm trying to think of is, so Google's kind of doing searches within that. It's kind of a mess, right? There's ways we can kind of piece it out, but is our recommendation here that we move into more to really talk about these information literacy skills and try to move them into more? Is that what I'm hearing? Is that we just want to try to move them away from that? Is that a feasible answer?
Yeah, I would say, me getting on my soapbox, this is a moment where we can be advocates for the skills that we teach students, because a lot of the skills that we teach are probably more necessary now in the world of AI than they were even before. And I think, speaking to the choir, preaching to the choir here, I think we all thought they were pretty important before. But this is just a layer of muddying the results that's being placed on top. But it's a middleman being placed on top of between the student and the results. So I think I do think there are applications of AI tools that will make research better and easier. I think OCLC is doing a lot of that, dipping their toes into generating tools in more focused ways that are helpful. And I even think Laura, talking about the example with EBSCO, where it gives the summary of each article, but you're still looking at the results over the general article, trying to summarize everything for the student as a step in that direction. So I think, I'm not saying write off AI going forward entirely. I do think that there are useful tools that can exist with this technology. And I think it's just going to be a matter of that librarian advocacy to get those tools developed as opposed to the ones that are currently out there.
Yeah, what I think one of the things I was looking at was how, like, if I point the large language model at a set of resources or a database of information, I find it to be far more useful than these general internet AI tools. And I think so, which it sounds like maybe what you guys might be talking about to some degree, because, you know, like AI overviews, ChatGPT, I don't know that the responses are great, where if I'm pointing it at a set of resources, the responses are way better. And I know that it can't deviate from this blockade that I've put on, I guess, is what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, the more focused the tool, from my experience, the better the results. So, you know, but that doesn't sell as well, I guess, to Silicon Valley investors to be like, hey, we developed this hyper specific tool, rather than a general tool that can do everything. Ruth.
Sorry. So I put a question in the chat and I was really interested in the answer. So I wanted to make sure I called attention to it. Laura was talking about the contamination of the research academic environment with AI results. Are there any recommendations about how to help first-year college students with this particular problem? Because obviously, I mean, you know, if you haven't got things that are reliable, they're going to be the last person able to tell what's reliable and what's not reliable.
That's absolutely a problem. And it's a problem generally with students understanding the results they find, even in the scholarly articles in our databases. My colleagues made a very nice video presentation for students about how to look at an academic article. And I always like to recommend that to people, but it still doesn't help with all of these problems of, you know, telling is the whole thing bogus. And so that's, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's tricky for all of us. And I think we're seeing, like last week's news about kind of Russia flooding AI chatbots with disinformation from their perspective, particularly about the Russia-Ukraine war. I think that the more content is out there, the harder it is to tell which content is the accurate and authoritative content. And that is, I think, where we came up with the dumpster diving title, because it feels more and more like that. So yeah, I think just being wary and or reminding students that this is possible. I think when we're looking at those topics that are likely to be contaminated, like climate change results, that for a while still, the preponderance of the evidence is going to show that climate change exists and that it's caused by this, this, and this. And maybe that will change over time too. And then we're going to be in an environment that I'm not even sure how to navigate. Anybody else jump in with thoughts on that?
Yeah, we're dealing with a lot of sources of quality at this point that if our trust in those sources are undermined, that's a huge problem. Bureau of Labor Statistics, EPA, CDC. If I think I'm not getting the scientific response, that's gonna be a problem, you know. So I don't know. Any more questions? Oh, there we are. Cat.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. I didn't want to derail the meeting more, but this is something that maybe other people have seen, is when I entered the meeting, I got the notification about the read.ai meeting notes happening. I don't know if everybody got that. I've had this in multiple meetings where it assigns a name like so-and-so has enabled this. And that person in the chat's like, I didn't enable this. I didn't want this. I don't know why it's saying I did this. And so I don't want to derail the session anymore, because thank you for sharing. It's very interesting. I have some things I'm going to annoy Atticus with tomorrow at our in-service. It's fine. But does anybody know why it's popping up? Because I'm getting mixed things of why it's just showing up. Because it doesn't seem to be the official. I was also doing some side research. The official like Google Meet transcript. It's just this like.
Maybe that's our notification that Google is mining data from the session.
Right. Is everyone in here okay? Because again, I didn't want to
We
derail
turned it
things
off.
early on.
It got turned off at the beginning.
I turned it off.
It's
So
all
now
No,
I
it's
just
still-
get the-
No,
It's still in the meeting though.
I know it. Well, the note is there.
No. There's a person in the meeting called read.ai meeting notes.
What?
Not that I'm aware of. I didn't
Anyway.
admit someone that said that.
That's what it's like. The note is like.
Oh, sure.
I see it.
So this is, I've seen it pop up. This is not this is a separate thing from like the built-in transcript service.
Huh.
So
Okay.
I was going to try in this chat to see if it would actually work, if I just do opt out, if it will actually remove itself.
It just
Yes.
did.
Okay. I made it. I just got re.ai meeting has left the meeting. So
Goodness.
You kicked it out. Nice.
be aware that that's a thing, because I've seen it on many meetings and some meetings too that people got impeded because they were supposed to be very private meetings. And it
Mhm.
was suddenly going to be transcribing like, where's that data going? Where is it going? Who's going to be able to see that?
I did not
No.
admit that person to.
No.
I didn't see, no, I'm
It's-
just saying I want to
yeah.
clarify that it pops in. I did not admit it.
It seems a weird thing on Google Meet. So if you're in meetings and you see it pop up, just be aware. Because again, with it being an AI thing, I didn't know like, oh, is this supposed to be there? I don't know. How I kicked it out was in the original note, it says type read stop to disable or opt out to delete meeting data. So I just tried opt out, just typing that into the chat, and it seemed to work. So I
That's
don't know.
I've seen that. Very.
But again,
close.
I've seen it in multiple meetings. Again, some of it being like closed session, like faculty sensitive topic things that we've tried to like get rid of it.
Okay.
And we are unclear why it's even popping up, because it'll assign a name to somebody who said it was enabled and that person did not enable it. So we're like,
I find it interesting, Kat, because I never got a pop-up saying it was even there. So,
Yeah.
you know, how did it pop up for you and not for other people?
I don't know.
Are you a manager, Cat?
No, that's the thing of like, and
No,
when I even click on the person
Google
itself, I couldn't.
Meet things. Are you manage the Google Meet in any way?
No,
Conference wise, nothing.
no.
Yeah.
And
Well,
again, it just gave a name that was. I also was wondering, which was why I asked, because it assigned a name to somebody who was not the presenter and it was not Lois. So I'm like,
Yeah,
I don't know. So just thought it would be nice for people to be aware that that might be a
choose
thing,
the
and
first
maybe
guest.
you.
Might choose.
Yeah.
the first guest.
But
Because I think the
just be
first
aware.
guest might have been Mary's name.
But if you just like are aware of that for future meetings, especially if you have a meeting that has sensitive conversations happening, you might want to make sure that is not in there, listening in, transcribing it
Right.
against your will.
Appreciate it, Kat.
Right.
Or
But the
if we just
presentation
don't
was-
want to hurt the AI's feelings, right? Like we were clowning on the thing and it was listening to us the whole time. Now I'm starting to feel.
Again, if somebody is specifically enabling it, like fine, but I want it to be clear, like, did somebody actually purposefully enable this, or is it just hanging out? Because who knows?
It's probably in that
And you
permissions
should,
that we never read.
so somebody should make sure that that's not the
Is it possible that
transcription tool.
It might
came
be
in
some-
through the transcription tool? Because instead of just allowing the closed captions, it said recording and then transcription, which I usually get a transcription anyway without requesting it, but just to be safe. So maybe
Okay.
that's how it came in.
Or
Okay.
I'm wondering if there's like a setting somewhere in like the actual system that you can change that. to like that like automatically allows it in or something.
Okay. Well, do we have any questions about the topic at hand? Okay.
Again, that's why I tried to wait till the end. I didn't want to derail things anymore.
That's fine. It's interesting to know about that because I see it in Zooms too as well. So, all right. Well, Atticus and Laura, do you have any final thoughts on this matter before we end it? By all means.
I don't.
Thanks everyone for coming. That's all I got. No. If anyone wants to reach out to Laura or I. We'll try to answer any questions afterwards. But
Definitely.
thanks everyone for being here.